Pursuant to Section 800, Subdivision 4 of the Masons Manual that governs House proceedings in addition to House and joint rules pursuant to House Rule 4-2, witnesses before a legislative body or its committee may not, need not be sworn unless there's some rule or provision of law or of the Constitution requiring it. But witnesses give their testimony under the penalty of being adjudged guilty of contempt and punished if they testify falsely. While Mason's Manual does not require an oath, we will be asking each witness to take an oath to assure the committee that the witness's testimony is accurate. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do swear or affirm.
I do swear or affirm
That the testimony I am about to give.
that the testimony I'm about to give
Is the truth.
is the truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please have a seat and identify yourself for the committee, please.
Yes, sir. I'm David Natvig.
Okay. Questions of the committee. Representative Stevens.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. For the committee's benefit, could you give us a little bit about your background?
How far back, sir?
Well, not so we figure out how old you are.
Okay. I graduated from South Dakota State in 1987, went in the Army, spent some time at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My last duty assignment there was with U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Left Bragg, came back to South Dakota, ended up attending USD Law School in '97, graduated in 2000, went back to my hometown of Kimball, South Dakota, ran a private law practice, and then was, at some point, a couple years into that, elected as Brule County State's Attorney, and I think I served somewhere from about 2002 to 2018, approximately, as the Brule County State's Attorney.
Okay.
And also prosecuted for the Crow Creek Sioux Tribe and a lot of other.
All right. Well, thank you. And you then went to law school with the Attorney General?
At the same time, sir, I was actually the class of 2000, and I believe he was in 2001.
Okay. And what's your current position?
I'm the director of the South Dakota Division of Criminal Investigation, sir.
And the Attorney General appointed you to that position?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And so on the night of this incident, is that when you first, when you received the text message from the Attorney General, is that when you first learned of what occurred?
Yes, sir. I was at a wedding for one of my friend's daughters down in Sioux Falls, I believe, in Hartford, and I got the text, I think, that evening late from the Attorney General.
Okay. And did you have, besides that, are those the only text messages that you received that night?
I believe so, yes, sir.
There's like about 3 of them. Does that sound about right?
It's been a long time, sir, but I did, whatever those messages were, I know I did discuss those with the investigators from North Dakota, and I believe you're correct that there may be 3 texts.
Okay. And other than those 3 texts that evening, did you have any conversations with him that evening?
I don't recall if I spoke to him in person that evening, sir. It would be in my statement to the North Dakota investigators, but I do not recall that if I spoke to him in person or telephonically that night or not.
Okay. Well, to your recollection, did the Attorney General ever tell you that he hit a deer?
No, sir.
Okay. So then, the next day, did you have any conversations with the Attorney General?
I don't believe I had any conversation with the Attorney General the next day. No, sir.
Okay. And when did you first learn that the Attorney General had struck and killed an individual?
Sometime that morning, and I don't recall the time, and my recollection is that Mr. Borman, Tim Borman, probably called me, and the AG may have been within voice distance of the phone, but I think Mr. Borman called me and talked about this accident, which I assumed was he had struck a deer. And then at some point they said that there was a man, and so that was the point I found out about the person.
Okay, and did you have any conversations with the Attorney General that day?
I don't believe so.
Have you had any conversations with the Attorney General about this matter?
Other than the only things that he's ever said to me about this matter are that he did not know what he hit that night, and he believed that he was on the road or in the lane of travel. And that's the...
So was that conversation then the day that the body was discovered?
I don't know that I really had any conversation with him about it at that time. I mean, there's been other times since then that he's maybe in passing stated that. You know, obviously it's a huge issue. But we have not had any other conversations outside of those statements, to my recollection.
Well, so you're telling me that you didn't talk to the Attorney General that morning?
He may have been on the, like I said, sir, I don't remember if Mr. Borman called me on his phone, and the AG may have been on, they may have been on speakerphone at that point.
So do you recall him talking to you about the call from the 911?
The only, and sir, I just don't recall if he said that. I know there was a statement that he made at one point that he had called 911
Okay, well,
the night before.
Sure. I'm going to ask you a question that I don't want to offend you when I ask it. I'm just trying to clear something up. But have you looked at the statement or the report that the North Dakota individuals prepared from the interview that they did with you? Have you reviewed that?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
All right. So it sounds like you've had some other conversations with the Attorney General since this has occurred. Would that be a fair statement to say?
I don't know if you'd really call them conversations, sir, other than just, you know, obviously it's a big deal, and if there was anything said, that's my recollection, that his statement was, I didn't know what I hit, and that he believed he was on the road at the time.
Now, are you aware whether or not the Attorney General has had any conversations with any of the members of the DCI that would relate to this incident?
Well, I understand that there was a, is it okay if I have a water?
That's what it's there for.
I understand that there was a conversation with one of the, he would have been a supervisory special agent, and Brent Gromer. Yes, sir.
Okay, and what was that conversation about?
If I can, part of the background, I guess, leading up to this is we supply, our supply people supply us with cell phones.
Okay.
And so I believe, again, based on my recollection, that by this time the Attorney General had given both of his cell phones to the North Dakota investigators or someone in law enforcement.
Sure.
And so our person who's in charge of that process had ordered him a replacement cell phone. And I believe that he had, that cell phone had come in, they'd let me know or let the AG know. And one way or another, he came upstairs into the DCI to get his phone. I don't remember all the details. I know that he had a conversation with, again, one of the supervisory special agents. And while this was going on, one of our IT folks came in with the phone, and I think I was having a discussion with him, and so I don't know a lot about what was discussed between those two. There was some question, I think, about if my flashlight's on, is my phone locked? But in my mind, that was the extent of what I was listening to. I just didn't pay that much attention, I guess, to what was going on between them.
So but you were in the room when the conversation occurred?
It's part of it, yes, sir. But like I said, I believe I walked out and got this cell phone and came back in, and then I was trying to get a hold of one of the IT folks, and then he came in and I gave him the phone, and he was working on it, so.
Okay. Do you recall the Attorney General asking anything about what information would be stored on his phone that the North Dakota investigators had taken?
Not really. I think, you know, he may have said something to the IT guy. I assume he was trying to figure out, you know, what you do if you don't have your phone and when you're trying to get your contacts backed up or whatever, something like that. But I really can't speak to what else was said. I didn't assume it was anything that was to do with the investigation, because again, we weren't involved in the investigation. The agent wasn't involved in the investigation, and from what I heard, it was nothing that would cause me concern.
Just innocent conversation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Yes, sir.
Have you received or reviewed any of the results of the investigation?
No, sir. I mean, when this happened, you know, since I'm under oath, after somewhere around 16 or 18 years as a prosecutor, as an attorney, we all understand that, you know, when there's a conflict, which this was, we clearly recognize that this was a conflict. I've stepped away from this, and, you know, DCI, we're awful busy with the things we have going on. There's a lot of big cases. We had a triple homicide in Millbank. We had a triple homicide in Scotland. I mean, that's what I spend my days and nights thinking about. So I did not ever get involved in looking at any of these reports or anything from North Dakota or the Highway Patrol or anybody else.
Okay. I don't have anything further at this point.
Okay. Questions?
Yes.
Representative Barthel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Natvig, again, thanks for your willingness to come in and talk with us today. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So when did you find out about the fact that a man was struck and killed? Was it when the phone call from, I believe, Mr. Borman and Rounsburg called you, or was it prior to that?
No, I'm pretty confident that it was the phone call from Mr. Borman.
Okay, because what was testified to also that there was a conversation with the sheriff about when they first discovered it, and then he was going to call DCI and the Highway Patrol. So just at what point were you notified that they needed your agency?
Just as a little background, sir, and this is all hearsay, but my understanding is once the sheriff found out that what had happened, that there was a body, a death involved, I believe he called for one of our agents, which is normal course of business, and I believe that agent probably called my assistant director, Brian Zabe, and I think at that point, Brian said, you know, we have a conflict here, there's no way we can investigate this case, and so I assume at that point that's when Brian made the phone call to North Dakota.
Oh, okay, and that was going to be my next question. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Schwab.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. Does DCI have any sort of policy or procedure in place relating to internal investigations?
As far as what type of investigation of ourselves or
Of yourselves or one of your staff, if you're concerned about some sort of wrongdoing?
I don't know, sir, that we have a written policy, but it has been our practice since I've been there that if there's an issue like this, we go outside to look for some help. Okay. Typically, that's been North Dakota. I mean, we have a long-standing relationship with North Dakota. I believe they had some kind of a deal up there with that involved politics, and so they had a couple of our agents go up and investigate that. That's probably our closest relationship is with them.
Okay. So there's no written policy or procedures on internal investigations?
Other than if we have a conflict, we wouldn't investigate ourselves. I guess it would really, and I shouldn't say that, I guess it would really depend on what the situation was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you could give me a hypothetical that,
Well, you know, going back to Agent Gomer, I'm trying to understand here. There's been an acknowledgement that there's a conflict going on with the Attorney General being, you know, you can't investigate him.
Right.
But at the same time, DCI is, through Agent Gomer, providing information to the Attorney General about how investigations like his are typically conducted. And I'm just curious why that was handled that way.
I don't know that it was handled any particular way, sir. I think it, honestly, my belief is that was a spur of the moment thing that the Attorney General ran into Supervisory Special Agent Gromer. He's not stationed here. He was stationed in Rapid City. He happened to be in the office for a clearly unrelated matter, had nothing to do with the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they bumped into each other in the hallway upstairs in DCI, and he asked him some questions, and that's so it was not a DCI investigation where somebody gets assigned to a case or anything of that type.
Yeah, and so I'm clear. What does Agent Gomer do for DCI?
He doesn't do anything anymore, sir. He retired about 3 or 4 months ago.
Oh, good for him.
Yes, sir.
What were his job duties,
He
though?
was the Internet ICAT commander.
Okay.
And like many agents, he started off and did regular agent work, and then as he got promoted and became more and more specialized.
Okay, and what does ICAT stand for?
That's a good question. Internet crimes against children, and that deals with pornography and those type of things.
Would he have been one of the agents trained to deal with accessing and manipulating, or not manipulating, but accessing and producing cell phone data in an investigation?
He was a supervisor at the, yes, sir. He would have knowledge of that.
Okay.
I mean, we have many agents that are trained in that.
Yeah. And so you said you thought this conversation occurred in the hallway between the Attorney General and Agent Gromer?
That's probably where it started, because when I left, the Attorney General was headed up to my office to get this phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe when Agent Gromer was not in my office, and neither was the AG. I believe Gromer was in the next office down from me visiting with one of the other ADs, and I'm assuming that, and that's probably a dangerous thing, but.
Yeah. You were there for part of the conversation, you said?
Yes, sir. In and out.
You were in and out of it. So did you, but did you catch a lot of the conversation, what they were speaking about?
My recollection, I did not pay that much attention. There were a lot of other things going on, and basically I was trying to help the Attorney General get his phone.
Okay.
And deal with the IT guy, and like I said, there was something that I caught, something about a flashlight on your phone. Is your phone locked when that's on or unlocked? Mm-hmm. And that's really all I remember about that conversation.
And when you say in and out, you mean in and out of your office, correct?
I did go down and get yes, sir. Yeah. Got the phone, and
'cause
that's a long time ago. But
yeah, most of their conversation occurred in your office, right?
As far as I know.
Okay. Okay. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is you know, the reason we know about that is because Mr. Gromer, I'm probably saying his name wrong, did issue a statement about it to recount what happened.
I have not seen that statement, I guess,
Okay.
sir.
and that was my question. Is that a common practice for your agents for something that they're not investigating to actually document in your files?
This is just a strange situation. I mean, they're trained to document everything. That's what they do. They're DCI agents, and they are fantastic about documenting what they do. I assume that's why he did it. I don't know. I've never spoken to him about it. I don't know what this document says.
Okay. But at the time, even though the Attorney General was, subject to an investigation that you weren't involved because of a conflict, you didn't have any concerns with the Attorney General asking Mr. Gomer questions about how cell phone data worked before he had his second interview with North Dakota?
I guess it didn't concern me. I don't know what the again, I felt like what I saw was a pretty innocuous conversation between a couple gentlemen that knew each other, and it would be, I mean, I can think of a lot of places where you might be curious about something and ask a question because you know this guy knows his business, but I don't believe that, in my 18 years as a prosecutor, I don't feel like that's at all a conflict or that he somehow interfered with the investigation, because North Dakota was handling the investigation. We had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And no matter what Gromer told him, North Dakota, again, my understanding, North Dakota already had his phones. So
in your interview with North Dakota, you mentioned that, I can't remember if you said you had seen him earlier on Saturday or if you had talked to him earlier, because you were both you were both kind of driving in the same area, him the Spink and you the Sioux Falls. Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't believe that I saw him that day. I mean, I probably had spoken with him on the phone.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But I do not believe I saw him that day.
But you don't actually recall if you did speak with him that day or not?
I assume I probably spoke with him on the phone. I guess I can't remember what we had going on, but again, DCI, we stay pretty busy. I mean, there are cases going on across the state all the time that I try to update him on what the status is.
Yeah. Earlier you said that, it's a huge issue, this accident. I'm just curious, is it a huge issue in the office?
I don't know that it's a huge issue in the office. I mean, it's not, I don't believe it's ever kept me from carrying out my duties. I go out in the field a lot. I meet with the guys a lot, the guys and the gals. And I think I may have asked a couple of agents about this. And the response was just what you'd expect. Boss, we're too busy to worry about this. We got too much to do. I mean, we're investigating these big crimes, and that's what we do.
Okay. Have you observed if it's been an issue in the Attorney General's work?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, and so you understand, I mean, I run the DCI, I run the day-to-day operations of the DCI. And so he has given us the direction, the way he wants us to go after the big-time drug dealers, drug trafficking organizations, those kind of things. But other than that, we run the day-to-day operations, and he's just not involved in that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that any AG ever has been.
Okay. Last question from me for right now. You said that he brings up a lot that he says, one, he doesn't know what he hit, and two, he believed he was on the road. And you said he brought it up a lot, and I just wanted to have a better understanding of what a lot means.
And I apologize, I misspoke if I said a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If I've ever heard him mention it, that was all that I've heard him say, is that he was not aware of what he hit that night, and he believed he was on the road.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chair.
Yes, Representative Jensen.
One question. Within DCI, to the best of your knowledge, who do you believe was tasked to be in charge of the investigation? Was it South Dakota, North Dakota? Who, in any conversations you had or your understanding, who was leading the investigation or in charge of it?
In North Dakota,
Well, the agency, or which state?
my understanding was North Dakota was the lead investigative agency. I mean, they're the investigators.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further questions? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Natvig. If you want to just stick around in case something else comes up, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you very much.